Gentlemen, chat, we got to get into Xbox in 2026. Now, again, we've talked about the games to death. We're not actually gonna get into what games are happening. You already know that their lineup is it's almost unfair. But next year, Crispy, is the 25th anniversary of Xbox. But on that 25th anniversary, they will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of Halo Combat Evolved, and more specifically, Master Chief, right? This is going to be a big year. It's going to be a big year for them because Gears of War is celebrating their 20th anniversary. And we're getting a new Gears game, Gears of War E-Day. We are rumored to be getting the next, well, not the next installment in Halo, the remake of Halo Combat Evolved in Unreal Engine 5, built brand new from the ground up. It's going to look new. It's going to play new, but it's going to be the old story that we know and love. And again, you're getting a new Forza. Forza Horizon 6 is supposed to be announced, and we know that it's coming next year because Phil Spencer said so, on top of a bunch of other games. And I mean, maybe this is just some fanboy dreaming, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe it's not. Crispy, what better way to celebrate the Trinity, the three pillars that literally make Xbox Game Studios what it is, what it was, and what it will be in the future, and that is Gears, Halo, Forza. Those three games, we're getting a new one of each of the Trinity, the three pillars that keep Xbox afloat. And I think that it almost would be unjustified not to have a new console. Now, if the console isn't ready, that's one thing. But they've been making some moves. I mean, look, when fall happens and this new handheld that they partnered with Asus to release the fall. Again, the rumor is October. When that happens in the fall, the official aggregated Xbox UI is going to be available for this thing, meaning that what they wanted or what's rumored to be happening in Xbox consoles next generation is going to be available 14 to 16 months before a potential release of a new console, right? And I think it does line up really well with maybe making the announcement at the Game Awards, right? They did that in 2019, 2020, a new console came out. They shocked the world. They can shock the world again, close out the year in a big way by showing out or showing up big at the Game Awards with hardware in tow. Now, is that hardware a Series X and S? No, I don't think so. I think that you're going to get the box under the TV and potentially a handheld. That's my thoughts. And we did hear, right, this was the rumor to start the 2025 campaign, that they were looking towards 2026. And then that somehow changed a bit. And now we heard, well, no, not till 2027. And then the rumor started to fly around where it could, in fact, have a console release next year. And I just think it's too perfect not to have new hardware. If you are releasing the Trinity, the three pillars that make up Xbox, how effing amazing would it be on the same day? Because I would imagine that Halo Combat Evolved remake, whatever they want to call it, is going to release 11/15/26. Right? That's obviously the 25th anniversary of that particular franchise and the platform. I think it would be such a wasted opportunity not to have a new console to go with a new old Halo game, along with new Gears, new Forza, a new State of Decay. I mean, the list is just packed. Let's get your thoughts on that. Is there a chance, Crispy, that we see new hardware next year, or am I fanboy dreaming?
I don't think you are. The way they have announced partnerships with AMD and everything else, they have, and the integration. So they're like, AMD is, you know, everybody says NVIDIA. Well, AMD is like, we can do it, but we want to keep the price down. And that's why all these console makers go to it. You know what I mean? Because they do things a little different than NVIDIA. NVIDIA just powerhouse. Okay. Like you want PC parts, go that route. Okay. Like you want to spend the money and trust me, like you look at the prices of their graphics cards and everything else. Because I've had to try to help my stepson, like understand that like some things are not equal. And for what he wants is not the same from what I want. And for their partnership, and I'm gonna be honest with you, like a lot of people ignore this, but that AI integration into the Asus, the X Asus, that one is a full-on partnership to make that chip for that AI part, because they wanted to be able to run the graphics and everything else and add textures on the handle, like on the whim. You boot up the game, you're gonna have what you should have. They're working on that. They're also showing you that they're saying, okay, we're going to be a storefront as well. We are going to make something new, something that you have never actually understood, especially if you're a console gamer. And I mean, you could argue the numbers, but I would say there's a good 20 million people, at least on the Xbox side, that they don't mess with the PC Game Pass. They don't touch the PC at all. And you say to all of these companies that could come in, Ubisoft, Steam, everything else, hey, look, you have a player base you've never been able to touch. Let us help you in coding this and allowing it to come together into one storefront. And then your developers that only have released on Steam, for example, have this extra 20 million people there. Okay. That, might be one person, because there's a lot of games on Steam that are just one person or two people. You know what I mean? Like some small little team that just makes something that is funny or just gravitating towards. And nobody else on, that plays console like ourselves, I don't know about it until Xbox gives the okay.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you look at this, and this is where, like, like the beginning of the show is this, but the end of the show is, what are the possibilities? Because the possibilities are that you're getting people like myself and Boom that don't want to boot up a PC and allowing them to play games that are quirky, not like not a huge amount of data or anything else. I watched my stepson play some super weird games. Okay. Like, but isn't that the Game Pass model already? Like we have all kinds of weird games. You know what I mean? Like games that you would never even boot up, but somebody does. Okay. So why not integrate that and say, yeah, you know what? Like, as long as it can run on the console that they make, why not have it happen? And I think the partnership with AMD is them saying, look, like they gave us the best price. Let's be logical. They're a company. But at the same time, they're working too tightly together. And then you see the Meta Quest thing, and it leaked and it's almost like they make sure everybody cool with it. Okay. Now it's actually happening.
Potentially.
It's one of those things. So I feel like, and this is where I'm going to go back to a couple of weeks ago or last week, something like that. We're looking at Xbox saying, okay, you know what? Let's not focus on that handheld. Asus has done a great job. Let's let them do their thing. We can build a great hardware in partnership with AMD and using like a multifaceted chipset that involves us and them. there's probably going to be a very high priced. I'm going to say the Series X version of the next console would be $800. Okay.
Yep.
But you can, and here's where I say this is how you actually get people to look at Xbox. You can play Steam games on there. And then people will be like, well, shit. Like, so like, I've never played some of these PC games. Why not allow, like, how are you going to do that? And then the integration, which they just released, yesterday? So, like, it's insider program, by the way, people, on the PC side of Game Pass or Xbox app, whatever you want to call it. But they are looking at things completely different. How do you become undeniable? You're going to release your own hardware. You allow your partners to do some of the work because they're technically third party or second party now because they put the Xbox brand on it. But you allow them to make the actual hardware and then use software back end it and work on the software. That's why that handheld has been shelved. And I think Xbox itself is entirely working on the console itself now. And maybe there's a handheld down the road, but they're kind of looking at it like the VR.
Yeah.
Which they went to Meta. Does anybody remember when they partnered with Facebook Meta? Does anybody remember? This is what was happening. Like, I look at it now and I'm reading through the tea leaves and I'm like, these guys are playing a different game. Okay. And I'm going to tell you right now, Sony's in shambles right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Nintendo is even looking at that Asus and like, oh man, we got problems because you're going to be able to play games that you can't play on Nintendo right now. And of course, Xbox can be like, okay, like we'll try to port it. If they don't allow it, that's on them. They don't care. They want to sell wherever they can sell any of their games. So really, like, how logical is it to not have 25th anniversary console, Halo, 20th anniversary of Gears, all in the same year? Why not go all the way? Like, I'm talking like 10 AAA bangers type all the way. And you can include Call of Duty in that and stuff like that. But actually think about that. Okay? You named all 4 games right off rip. Okay? You got State of Decay and wherever, Fable, wherever. Like, imagine that, the onslaught. And I look at it and I say, yeah, I mean, I could see Phil. This is my swan song. Mic drop. Walk away. Like, he could retire the week, the January 1st of 27. I'm done. Like, you guys got.
I mean, he's going to earn
right?
it. He's been there 30 plus years. So yeah, you're onto something.
So I'm just saying, like, I'm telling you, Phil, that Play Anywhere, like, everything's starting to shift. And people are starting to say, man, like, I got to play games wherever I want. If I have an Xbox or I don't have an Xbox, I could download it on my TV. I could do this and that. Like, there's a lot of things happening right now. And I mean, obviously, like, anniversaries and all that, but just the shift that's happening right now. And I'm starting to see it, starting to see people not have an argument anymore. So I look at that and I say, you know what? Like, how are you going to take down the king? Sony's the king as far as console sales. How are you going to take them down? You give something that's undeniable. You give them something that's I could play Steam game. I could boot up Ubisoft games through my Ubisoft account right on the app. Like, they are showing you this now. Yes, it's completely possible, and I think it would be completely logical to release a new console next year.
I mean, it's a great point of view. And you brought up the handheld. And one thing, talking with people like Paris Lee, who's in the chat, Paris and I have conversations. So Paris, thanks so much for popping in, brother. Paris says the next Xbox will be an open platform. So regardless of Steam or Epic are already installed, you'll have the ability to add any PC storefront to the device. this is something that's widely known. I don't know why he has to, he had to say that. Maybe somebody in the chat was challenging him. I mean, come on, folks. Knows what he's talking about. He just did a bunch of videos regarding why this is the next step for Xbox. And folks, it may not be. Look, I understand there are a lot of purists here, and no one is dancing on your grave regarding where Xbox was many, many years ago and where they have to go, because like Crispy literally just said, to dethrone the king, which right now is PlayStation, you need to do things that they're not going to do. The PlayStation 6, folks, as we understand it, is going to be incredibly powerful. Make no mistake, but it's not going to be an open platform. It's just not. They would have to reset everything that they're doing from being the traditional Sony that and maybe you love that traditional Sony. Maybe you feel that, well, you know what, they have to have their exclusives. That's why I have Sony. Folks, they're going to get away from that. At some point, maybe it's not this year. Hell, maybe it's not even next year. But at some point, Sony's going to stop leaving money on the table, meaning that they're going to release day and date on at least PC. Xbox, I don't think so. Switch, I don't know. PC, for sure. You're going to get a dual release because they are literally leaving money on the table. They're going to have to change. They want to survive. They're going to have to change. They cannot base all of their monies on hardware sales, which doesn't make as much money as you think it does. But you know what? Getting back to what Crispy said, we have heard, and I have heard some things behind the scenes, some stuff I won't talk about, and some things I'll just make mention of now, that they made this partnership with Asus, and maybe this partnership, along with them and some others that have not been named yet, maybe that's why they're holding off their own handheld hardware, because of course what they don't want to do is make this partnership and then hurt their partners. So Jamie, if they're not releasing their handheld to, let's say, 27, right? That was another rumor. It makes sense that they could be ready to at least drop the hardware next year, because again, I think Crispy does really put this whole package together. What better way to take on the king, and that is Sony right now, than releasing as many first-party games as they're going to have in 2026, the Trinity, the three pillars that make up what Xbox is, Gears, Halo, and Forza. They're all getting a new game. A 25th anniversary console would fit perfectly with that. And if they're not doing a dual release, meaning your handheld and your console, because the handheld has been shoved to the side to allow their partners to get some air and breathe and sell their hardware, it does really open the door for, hey, we only got one release to make. There's still 6 months of this year, right? There is still a total of 11 months from the start of January 1st to November 15th, 2026. I mean, I'm no mathematician, ladies and gentlemen, but that's 17 plus months of room to get the hardware ready. And if they have the universal UI launching in the fall on these handhelds, I would imagine that this is just tip of spear. This universal UI that's going to give you the aggregated all of your games in one place thing is going to be what they use on the big boy console, right? 17 months is a long time to start working on releasing your next console. And if you're only doing a one SKU release, meaning it's just going to be the Xbox, whatever the hell they call it, and it falls in line with the 25th anniversary and some of their biggest releases ever, I think it'd be a missed opportunity for them not to do it. What are your thoughts?
I have a lot to unpack here.
Please, this is a conversational podcast. Take your time, kind sir.
I've gone back and forth against my own opinion with this. So, like, when the whole Activision FTC thing leaks and we heard that Microsoft was planning their next console for 2026, I used to think, that makes sense. Looks like they really want to get ahead of Sony by a year, maybe even two. We don't know. And then, it kind of came out that it was going to be 2027. And a lot of people thought, you know what, that's an extra year with these consoles. Microsoft didn't do a mid-gen refresh this time. I honestly think 2026 is reasonable. I think we got so used to long generations with the 360 and the PS3 that 6 years might seem pretty short to some people. But the truth is, that's how long console generations used to be, 5 or 6 years. And now, like, I kind of do lean towards the 2026 thing, and not because of the games thing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I think, if Halo, Gears, Forza, and Fable all launch next year, that's a bloody good year. But I think, them timing all these releases with a new console seems extremely unrealistic. But Microsoft, like, the past several months, they've surprised everyone time and time again. Microsoft started off this generation, and I love the Xbox Series X. I think it's a fantastic console, but they launched it without any launch titles, right? They had no first-party software at all. And, people at Microsoft felt that. And I think this time around, they really want to have launch titles. Like, let's say hypothetically, they get ahead of Sony by a year. You're going to have Halo, Forza, Gears, Fable, possibly Elder Scrolls 6, which would be a game changer. It's Modern Warfare 4 next year, which would be huge. So I think, if Microsoft want to go at that angle, it could really pay off for them, because remember when the 360 came out first, like, people didn't know whether it was going to be huge or not, and then it did, because that's why you went to play Call of Duty, because it looked better and all this stuff. And I think this time around, maybe Microsoft wants to do the same, because people will complain all the time about the multi-platform stuff every single day and never shut up about it. But the truth is, like, if you're in the Xbox ecosystem, there's literally tens of millions of fans out there with built-in libraries. We're still getting games, and people act like there's going to be this third-party exodus from the platform, even though it hasn't happened yet, but they keep claiming it's going to happen. But Microsoft wouldn't invest billions into a next-generation platform, because for people that don't know, that's how much these platforms cost to R&D, right? Billions with a B. So, like, Microsoft putting all their eggs in this basket of, gaming, like, of course console's going to, like, get pushed forward. Now, I said this last week on my channel. I think I said it on your channel as well. Like, my theory for the longest time is that, next generation, there isn't going to be a Series S style console. I think they're going to have the main box and a handheld. Right? I will not deviate from this thought. Right? But when we heard, from Jez Corden that the pushing off the handheld to the side, it got me thinking. Look at the Switch 2, right? The Switch 2 is, I'm not entirely sure of the US price. Is it $449?
Yeah, $449 for the one without the game, $499 with Mario Kart World.
Okay. So, like, my theory is that I think maybe they want to wait an extra year to get the price down, because, like, I think a fancy, cool Xbox first-party handheld would be really cool. But, like, how much is that going to cost? Like, it's going to cost a lot of money. $500, $600, $700, $800, $900, right? I think if they wait an extra year, maybe a year and a half, that's when they do their first party native handheld, where it'll play all of your games natively, which is great. That's something I'd want. So, like, I can completely see them launching the next generation platform next November with a slate of first party games and upgrades, and push it that way. I think it will be interesting to see, because Microsoft didn't do a mid-gen refresh this time around.
Good point,
because
dude.
they didn't need to. A lot of people said, like, before this generation started, myself and a lot of people were like, we don't need one this time around. Nobody's selling 4K TVs. The games aren't any more 4K than they were before, right? So, like, we're good with the consoles we've got. I've never looked at a game on Xbox Series X and thought, wow, that's blurry. Not once. So I can completely see this happening, and people keep talking about the PC storefront thing. You have to realize how many people are really going to use that, right? It's a big deal, don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be a lot of people that use that. Me, I'll download a bunch of old ass Star Trek games from GOG and have a good day, right? But I think that's a very small part of the market. It's going to be cool that you're going to have all your games across from Steam, GOG, Epic, all in one box. But I think people are wanting a next generation console with launch titles, because remember this generation, boom, we had no Halo. Halo was going to be the launch title, Halo Infinite. And when that got pushed back, what people were looking towards, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and these other, third-party games, it wasn't good enough. And, they couldn't help it. The games needed delaying. They marketed the platform with Forza Motorsport, which didn't come out till, 2023? So, they need to advertise a new platform, not just with its feature set of upgrades, and all that stuff. They need to advertise a new platform with new games, which they haven't done in a long time. Because remember even when the One X came out in 2017, even though that was a mid-generation refresh, people were complaining that there were no launch titles by the first party.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I don't think it's necessary for a mid-gen refresh, but if we're going to have a new generation, they need to have launch titles. If you launch a new console in 2026 with a Gears, with a Forza, with a Halo, and upgrades to your existing games, you have the brand new Call of Duty, all shiny 4K, 120 FPS ray trace and all that stuff, right? That is a successful holiday, because Microsoft, they've needed this for a long time, and it looks like the stars are aligning for next year. And if it works, it's going to be successful. Whether people complain and cry constantly about multi-platform titles or not, it won't matter. They'll have a successful holiday, because Sony's going to be an extra year, even if it's just 1 year difference, right? Look at all the hype PlayStation had since the PlayStation 5 Pro came out, right? There weren't really any first-party titles taking advantage of the thing day one, new ones. There's Death Stranding 2 that's out now, and that's that's owned by Kojima, but it looks great and all that stuff. But that's a mid-generation refresh. And plus, this generation, remember, we were all stuck in the house. There wasn't a conventional E3. We didn't even have a conventional launch, right? This generation started in a weird place, and we had no launch titles in a pandemic, stuck in the house. So, next year, Microsoft can capitalize on all this, have a bloody good time. I will say this, and I've said this for the past 5 years, and I hope Microsoft listens. Call the next generation Xbox 6. Right? End the naming convention. People are dumb, right? They'll get over it. Slap a number on the end, not a Roman numeral, not a word. Don't call it the Xbox Series X2 XXX, the return of Xander Cage, none of that crap, right? Call it Xbox 6. People will be like, where's the Xbox 5? Who cares? There wasn't an iPhone 9. There wasn't a Windows 9. There wasn't an iOS 18 through 25, right? Sorry, 19 through 25. People will get over it. Slap a number on the box, and then when you get your handheld out, call it the Xbox 6 Go. Boom. Success.